What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. Today we're going to be talking about sidechain compression. Now, I might have gone over this in a really old video, but I want to bring it up because it's something that will constantly come up during projects and will assist you. So when we think about sidechain compression, of course, we think about the classic volume ducking and getting that bass out of the way of the kick. And that can be done a variety of ways, drawing automation curves with volume, using plugins like LFO Tool or Kickstart. You can also do a more actual sidechain compression where you use like a sidechain compressor, and that sidechain compressor is receiving a signal from something or receiving a signal from a ghost kick to trigger it each time it's being played, which I've done that a lot in the past. Today I want to show you guys that there's a lot that you can do from the mix perspective. Now, this is that track, Un Forastero, with Kid Illy. And here during the drop, if we listen to just the lead, if you will, the brass, let's have a listen. So that lead is like dry and it's going to a wet, and the wet is going to a mix. So they're combining. I did this so that the dry supersedes, it's the master, and the wet, the one with RC48, so the reverb and the EQ, is being sidechained by the dry. It's breathing. Now, I've talked about that a lot, but what this also allows you to do is the dry signal, which is track 14, the dry signal can send its data to something else too. So we can see here that it's being routed. Let's just make this wide. It's being routed to a track number 23, which is, it says my voice layer. Now, if we listen to my voice layer, it's really cheesy. It's really meant for ambiance, really in the background, because on its own, let's have a listen. So those were vocals I just recorded with my Yeti, and I recorded that in FL Studio. I put a lot of effects on it because I just wanted it to be like ambiance. Because dry, it probably sounds atrocious. Let's see. With that being said, I didn't want it to fight for space. Now, of course, you could bring the levels down. But one benefit of using sidechain compression, which I'm doing so here, is that you can kind of do best of both worlds. You can bring the levels down, but you can also let it breathe when there is space, when the dry lead is not playing. Because so long as the dry lead is playing, of course, my vocals will go down in level, and we can see that. We can see that here. So each time that goes down, the lead is playing. Of course, we're not hearing it if we want to hear the whole thing. So this way, my voice is like low level to the point where if we take a look at the levels, you know, it's playing around like minus 50 dB and then going up to like minus 17 dB. So rather than having like just a static knob, I could do that using Pro C2 on this, which I like using these plugins a lot for sidechain compression. I get a little bit of control as to how much I want it to not only be in the background, but also open up when that dry lead stops playing. So when we don't get that lead signal, we can check it out here. When we don't, it's just going to play. And of course, you could bring that down, but getting that lead signal can make a big difference in terms of making more space and kind of more of like an ecosystem for your sounds. That the dry lead is the most prominent, but it also is sending sidechain signal to track number 23. So that 23 stays down, but also when the lead stops, like for instance right there, the end of the 30-second drop, then the voice layer can also open up and we can hear a little bit of that reverb trail. So I just wanted to share that with you. Like that's something that really stuck by me when Wolfgang Gartner talked about that, how, you know, he would sidechain his synth with his hats so that the hats could play over top of the synth. And the great thing about sidechain compression is it's dynamic, so that you're not going to have something that's very stagnant. You won't have stagnation. Instead, you'll have something that is, you're really gluing the sounds together. And I find that using sidechain compression in these instances can really glue things together and give ambiance without overwhelming and making your synths and everything fight for too much space. Now, of course, do you need to do this? You don't have to. You can, of course, like do classic, like on many of my tracks here. I have just the levels really low on the samples. Like some of the FX samples are like -48, -50, -24. But it's situational, and this really benefited from it because overall it stayed in the back. But when the lead stops playing, then we can let it kind of play out each time it stops, and we can see that as that curve gets released, as that pressure gets released. If you want super quick pressure, a little side note here, if you want the most instantaneous, then use opto. The other modes are good too. If you feel lazy, try vocal, because you don't have to mess with the ratio. You can just use the threshold. The reason why I did opto is that opto is like super quick. So it's going to act extremely fast if you have a very quick attack and relatively fast release. But that's just a tip that can help you guys maybe add more effects, but you don't want it to get in the way of the drop by any means. You don't even want to take a risk. Then look no further than using sidechain compression for these purposes. You don't always have to do it for kick and synth, kick and bass, kick and one shot. Why not do it like, oh, the one shot's super powerful, I want it to sidechain compress like these background vocals. And that can give movement to your track. And like I said, at the end of your drop, you can hear a little bit of that wetness and that trail, but it wouldn't be as audible if it was simply just a static knob. So just wanted to share that 2 cents with you on how I used sidechain compression in this project. Of course, in the other instance here, this dry layer was sending signal to this full-blown signal, and the wet reverb is being sidechained each time the dry one plays. So we can see here. Now that's something that's classic. I've talked about that a lot. Now in this case, I also used the opto. You don't have to. You just have to go by what sounds the best. But I find that when I do sidechain compression for the purpose of breathing reverb, or how I did with that vocal ambiance, I usually find that clean and classic and opto are quite good. But of course, read the manual, and just you have to go by what it sounds. I hope that tip, I can't even talk today. Hope those tips were useful for you guys. And I was working on like a kick project, so I'm hoping to release that tomorrow or Thursday. And of course, Feedback Friday is this Friday. Thank you guys. We got some submissions lined up, so feel free to send in some more submissions if you'd like some feedback on your tracks, your songs. And I had a question. Guy was asking, hey, does it have to be future? Does it have to be big room? No, it can be future house. It can be trance. It can be big room. It can be like any dance music genre, even like trap. But I'm not as much of a connoisseur of trap music. Now I'm just tangenting, going everywhere. Hope you guys enjoyed these tips. If you did, hit the like button. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take it easy.